There comes a time in every person's life when you realize you can't always depend on someone else to walk beside you. You can't always wait for the perfect partner, the perfect friend, or the perfect team to show up. And in that moment, when the world feels quiet, when you feel like you're standing on your own, you discover something most people never do, the strength that comes from walking alone. Walking alone isn't a punishment. It's a privilege. It's the space where you sharpen your vision, where you hear your own thoughts clearly, where you build discipline that no one can take from you. When you walk alone, there's no one else to blame. There's no safety net, no excuses. It's just you, your decisions, and your hunger to grow. And that right there is where strength is forged. Most people are terrified of solitude. They run from it. They fill their lives with noise, with distractions, with people who drain them instead of push them higher. But the ones who learn to embrace walking alone, they become unstoppable. Because once you know how to stand strong by yourself, no storm, no betrayal, no loss can ever break you. Think about it. Every great leader, every innovator, every world changer had a season where they walked the path alone. They didn't have a cheering crowd in the beginning. They didn't have applause or validation. They had nights of silence, days of uncertainty, and 1,000 reasons to quit. But they didn't. And that's why their names are remembered. When you walk alone, you build trust with yourself. You discover that you are enough. You stop waiting for permission and you start creating your own path. And once you know how to walk alone, then, and only then, can you walk with others in strength, because you're no longer needy. You're no longer dependent. You're complete. So if right now you feel isolated, if right now you feel like nobody gets your vision, like nobody believes in you, good. This is your season of strength. This is your training ground. This is where you become the kind of person who doesn't just survive life, but leads it, shapes it, commands it. Walking alone will test you, but it will also transform you. And one day, you'll look back and realize those lonely roads were the very paths that built the strongest version of you. Walk alone. Own your journey. Because it's the strength you build in solitude that will prepare you to stand victorious in the crowd. Walking alone builds unshakable self, trust, and inner strength. Because when you are by yourself, there is no one else to lean on, no one else to make the decisions for you, no one else to guide your steps. In that space of solitude, you are forced to turn inward, to rely on your own judgment, your own courage, your own discipline, and that is where the seeds of true strength are planted. Most people underestimate how powerful self-trust really is. They look for reassurance from the outside world, from family, from friends, from society. But when that reassurance is absent, when the approval doesn't come, they crumble. But the one who learns to walk alone doesn't crumble because they've built a foundation on themselves. They've discovered that the only approval they truly need is the one that comes from within. Every time you take a step on your own, every time you face a challenge without waiting for someone to rescue you, you prove to yourself that you are capable, that you are enough. And with each proof, your trust in yourself grows stronger. Walking alone means you also become your own coach, your own motivator, your own accountability partner. Think about how many times people quit because no one else was watching them, because no one else was holding them accountable. But when you learn to hold yourself accountable, when you make a promise to yourself and actually keep it, you are building a muscle that most people never even train. That's why walking alone is such a gift. It forces you to find that voice inside that says, I won't quit on me, even when no one else is watching. And when you develop that kind of self-respect, when you start to believe in your own consistency, you walk into every situation with a power that others can feel. People sense it when you trust yourself. They can feel your certainty. They can feel your conviction. And it makes them want to follow you, respect you, and believe in you, because self-trust is magnetic. Walking alone also exposes you to fear, doubt, and uncertainty in the raw West way. Without others around you, there is no distraction, no comfort blanket. You have to face your own mind, your own limiting beliefs, your own inner critic. At first, this feels uncomfortable, even unbearable. But if you lean into it, if you choose to confront those voices instead of running away from them, you begin to take your power back. You start to recognize that fear is not a wall, it's just a shadow. Doubt is not truth, it's just a question. And the only way you can learn that is by facing it alone, by being still enough to hear it and strong enough to push past it. That's why people who have learned to walk alone radiate strength, because they've been through the fire of their own mind and they've come out forged, refined, unbreakable. When you walk alone, you also learn how to be resourceful. There's no one to hand you the answers, no one to solve the problems for you, no one to pick you up when you fall. You learn to get creative. You learn to adapt. You learn to figure things out on your own. That resourcefulness becomes one of your greatest assets because life will always throw the unexpected at you. It will always bring situations you couldn't plan for. If you've only ever relied on others, those moments will break you. But if you've trained yourself to depend on your own resourcefulness, you will find a way through anything. That's why people who know how to walk alone can step into chaos and still find calm. They can step into uncertainty and still create solutions because they've trained their brain and their spirit to respond with creativity instead of panic. Walking alone is also how you discover your authentic self. When you're surrounded by people all the time, it's easy to get lost in their voices, their expectations, their opinions. You start to shape yourself around what others want you to be, not who you truly are. But in solitude, there are no masks, no roles to play. It's just you, raw and real. And in that space, you begin to uncover what you truly value, what you truly want, what dreams are actually yours and not borrowed from someone else. That authenticity is the foundation of unshakable confidence. Because when you live aligned with your true self, you stop needing validation, you stop seeking permission, you stop compromising who you are. You become solid, centered, grounded, and no amount of outside pressure can push you off balance. Another aspect of walking alone is discipline. When you don't have someone reminding you, when there's no one checking on your progress, when it's just you and the path ahead, discipline becomes non-negotiable. You learn to keep going even when motivation fades. You learn to do the hard things without applause. You learn to keep promises to yourself because your future depends on it. Discipline born in solitude is the kind that lasts because it's not fueled by external rewards, but by internal commitment. That's the kind of discipline that builds leaders, champions, visionaries. It's the kind of discipline that makes you strong enough to pursue your goals relentlessly, no matter how long it takes or how many obstacles appear. Walking alone also teaches you resilience. There will be moments when you fall, moments when you fail, moments when you feel like giving up. And in those moments, no one is there to carry you. You have to pick yourself up. You have to wipe your own tears. You have to push through your own pain. And every time you do, every time you rise again without help, you become stronger. Resilience is not built in comfort. It is built in challenge, and solitude delivers that challenge in a way nothing else can. That resilience then becomes your armor in life. When rejection comes, you bounce back. When betrayal happens, you keep moving. When life throws its hardest punches, you stand tall because you've trained yourself in the hardest way possible by walking alone. There's also a deep peace that comes with walking alone once you've embraced it. At first, it feels heavy, like loneliness, but eventually it transforms into freedom. You realize you don't need anyone else to complete you. You don't need constant company to feel valuable. You don't need the world's approval to feel alive. You carry your own validation within you. That peace is powerful because it makes you less reactive, less desperate, less easily manipulated. You walk into relationships whole, into opportunities confident, into challenges calm, because you know that even if everything falls apart, you will still be okay walking alone. And perhaps the most important reason walking alone builds self-trust and strength is that it prepares you for everything else in life. Once you've proven to yourself that you can handle solitude, that you can thrive without external support, that you can build yourself up from nothing, there is nothing left to fear. People may come and go, circumstances may change, but you remain. You remain strong, you remain capable, you remain grounded because your strength is not dependent on anyone else. That is the gift of walking alone. That is the unshakable foundation it builds. And once you have it, you carry it for the rest of your life. Solitude sharpens your vision and focus without distractions. Because when you are constantly surrounded by people, opinions, and noise, your attention is scattered in 1,000 directions and you can't hear your own inner voice clearly. But when you remove the external clutter and allow yourself to walk alone, you create the environment where clarity is born. It is in those quiet moments that your mind begins to settle, that the fog of comparison and outside expectations clears, and you finally start to see what really matters to you. Most people don't realize how much of their thinking is influenced by others. They think they are making choices freely, but in reality, their decisions are shaped by social pressure, by cultural norms, by what their friends or family expect. Solitude removes that influence, and what you're left with is pure vision. Your vision, when you're alone, you notice how much energy you waste on things that don't truly matter. You start to see which activities, which people, which habits actually move you closer to your goals, and which ones keep you stuck in cycles that drain you. That awareness is powerful because you can't sharpen your focus without first becoming aware of the distractions that have blurred it. Solitude forces you to confront those distractions head on. It's uncomfortable at first because silence exposes the truth, and the truth is often inconvenient. But when you embrace the discomfort, you start cutting away what doesn't serve you, and every cut makes your vision clearer. Every distraction removed gives your focus more power. You realize you don't have unlimited energy to waste, and suddenly you become intentional about where you place it. Walking alone also creates space for deep thinking. In a world addicted to speed and instant gratification, most people never sit long enough with a thought to explore its depth. But in solitude, you're not rushed, you're not interrupted, you're not forced to compress your ideas into quick sound bites for others. You can think deeply, reflect fully, and allow your mind to connect dots that would never connect in the chaos of constant interaction. That depth of thought is what gives birth to vision. Great ideas, innovations, and breakthroughs rarely happen in noisy rooms filled with chatter. They happen in quiet moments when a person is alone with their thoughts, staring into space, journaling, walking, meditating. That is where clarity lives, and solitude is the doorway to enter it. Another reason solitude sharpens vision is that it helps you prioritize long-term goals over short-term impulses. When you are constantly surrounded by people, it's easy to get swept up in the urgency of what everyone else is doing, to chase trends, to mimic others, to lose sight of what truly matters to you. But when you step back, when you walk alone, you create a buffer between yourself and the noise of the world. You can ask yourself, what do I really want? Where do I want to go? What do I want my life to look like 5 years from now? And because no one else is there to answer those questions for you, you are forced to dig deep and listen to yourself. That kind of long-term clarity can only be born in solitude, because only solitude gives you the mental space to separate your true desires from society's expectations. Solitude also strengthens your ability to focus on one thing at a time. In groups, your attention is constantly pulled in multiple directions. Someone's talking, someone's asking for help, someone's giving an opinion. You're multitasking, reacting, adjusting. But when you're alone, you can pour all of your energy into a single task, a single vision, a single project. That level of concentrated focus creates momentum, and momentum is the key to progress. Most people never experience the power of deep work because they never give themselves the gift of solitude. They confuse being busy with being productive, but solitude reveals the difference. Productivity is not about doing 100 things halfway. It's about doing the few things that matter with complete focus, and that skill is mastered in solitude. Walking alone also sharpens vision by forcing you to listen to your intuition. In groups, intuition often gets drowned out by louder voices. You start second-guessing yourself because someone else is confident in their opinion, even if they're wrong. But when you're alone, there's no outside noise to cloud your instinct. You can feel your inner guidance more clearly. That voice that whispers, "This is the right direction," or "This doesn't feel aligned," becomes easier to hear. And as you learn to trust it, your vision sharpens even further because you're no longer dependent on consensus. You're no longer chasing approval. You're no longer swayed by trends. You're moving in alignment with your deepest knowing, and that alignment is what makes vision powerful and sustainable. Another effect of solitude is that it strengthens self-awareness, and self-awareness is directly linked to clarity. When you walk alone, you start to notice your patterns, your triggers, your strengths, and your weaknesses. You begin to understand what environments fuel your creativity, what habits build your discipline, what activities drain your energy. And with that knowledge, you can refine your vision in a way that matches your true nature. Too many people set goals that aren't aligned with who they are, and that's why they struggle to stay consistent. But in solitude, you can strip away the lies you've been telling yourself and see the truth of who you are. That truth might sting at first, but it also empowers you to design a vision that actually fits you. And when vision fits, focus follows naturally. Solitude is also the birthplace of creativity, and creativity is essential for vision. When you're always consuming the thoughts and opinions of others, your mind is crowded and creativity suffocates. But when you step into silence, when you walk alone, your mind opens up. It starts to play, to imagine, to connect unusual ideas, to see possibilities others can't see. Creativity requires stillness, and stillness requires solitude. That's why so many artists, inventors, and leaders retreat into solitude to create their greatest work. They understand that vision is not just about seeing what exists now, but imagining what could exist, and that imagination thrives when the noise fades away. Walking alone sharpens focus because it also builds mental toughness. When you're alone, you don't have someone else reminding you to stay on track. You don't have someone cheering you on every time you get distracted. You have to train your mind to come back to what matters over and over again. That repetitive act of returning your focus is like training a muscle. At first it feels weak, but with practice it grows stronger, and eventually your ability to focus becomes unshakable. In a world where attention is the most valuable currency, the ability to focus is priceless. And solitude is the training ground for that skill. By walking alone, by practicing concentration and silence, you develop the kind of mental sharpness that allows you to cut through distractions and lock onto your vision with laser. Like precision, lastly, solitude sharpens vision because it teaches you to slow down. In groups, life moves fast, conversations, decisions, activities, all rushing forward. But in solitude, time stretches. You can pause, reflect, breathe, and see the bigger picture. You're no longer rushing to keep up with the crowd. You're setting your own pace. And in that slower pace, clarity emerges. You begin to see not just the next step, but the entire path. You begin to notice details you would have missed in the rush. You begin to sense opportunities others overlook because they're moving too fast. Solitude gives you the perspective of distance, the ability to rise above the chaos and see the full landscape of your life. And with that perspective, your vision becomes sharper, your focus becomes stronger, and your ability to pursue what truly matters becomes unstoppable. Every great leader has walked a lonely path before recognition, because the beginning of any journey that aims to create something extraordinary is rarely understood by others. When you decide to step outside the comfort zone of the majority, when you decide to pursue a vision that others can't yet see, you immediately separate yourself from the crowd. And with that separation comes solitude. People may call you unrealistic. They may call you crazy. They may doubt your ability to succeed. And in that doubt, they distance themselves. That is the price every leader pays at the start. Leadership is not built in applause. It is built in the silence of those early steps when no one is clapping, no one is following, no one is cheering you on. It's just you, your conviction, and your willingness to walk the path alone. Think of the innovators throughout history who changed the world. They weren't celebrated in the beginning. They were questioned, resisted, even mocked. Their vision was too big for others to grasp, and so they stood in solitude, carrying an idea that only they could believe in. That's what separates leaders from the masses. Most people need the approval of others before they act, but leaders act first without approval, without permission, without certainty of outcome. They walk alone, and that lonely walk is what builds the resilience, the courage, and the depth of character required to eventually lead others. Because how can you lead people if you have never known what it feels like to stand by yourself? The lonely path also tests commitment. It's easy to stay committed when people are praising you, when rewards are visible, when momentum is obvious. But when the nights are silent, when the results haven't shown up yet, when no one is watching, that's when true commitment is measured. Leaders prove themselves in the dark before they shine in the light. Every hour they spend alone refining their craft, every day they push forward without recognition, every sacrifice they make that nobody else sees, all of it is the invisible foundation of greatness. The world only sees the finished product, the success, the recognition, but what built it was the loneliness, the grind, the seasons of walking without company. Walking a lonely path before recognition also strengthens vision, because when no one else believes in what you're building, you're forced to believe in it twice as much. You have to carry it with conviction strong enough to withstand criticism, rejection, and indifference. And in carrying it, you refine it, you test it, you polish it until it's no longer just an idea, but a reality taking shape. Leaders who endure solitude emerge with clarity so sharp that when others finally see what they've created, it feels undeniable. That clarity wasn't handed to them. It was born in the silence of walking alone when all they had was their own belief. Another reason every great leader has walked that lonely road is that solitude filters out the ones who don't belong. In the early stages, when the path is uncertain and uncomfortable, people fall away. Friends disappear, doubters speak louder, and only those who are truly aligned with your vision remain. That process is painful, but it is also necessary, because true leadership requires standing on a foundation of authenticity, not on borrowed support. Leaders who have walked alone know who they are without the crowd. They know how to stand firm in their values without needing others to reinforce them. That self-knowledge is what makes their leadership trustworthy later on, because people follow leaders who are grounded in something deeper than popularity. The lonely path also forges empathy. When you have struggled without recognition, when you have felt the sting of rejection, when you have sacrificed without applause, you develop a deep understanding of what others go through when they walk their own lonely paths. That empathy becomes a powerful tool for leadership, because people don't just follow instructions, they follow someone who understands them. Leaders who have been through solitude can connect with others on a human level. They can inspire not just with their words, but with their presence, because people sense that they've paid the price, they've walked the road, they've earned the right to lead. Another aspect of the lonely path is that it eliminates dependence on validation. Many people collapse under criticism or failure because their self-worth is tied to how others see them. But leaders who have endured solitude know how to stand strong without external validation. They've learned how to move forward despite being doubted. They've learned how to keep believing in their vision when no one else does. That independence makes them unshakable. Later, when recognition finally comes, they are not enslaved by it because they've already proven to themselves that they don't need it to keep going. That's why some leaders remain grounded even when they're celebrated, because they know their strength wasn't built in recognition. It was built in the lonely path that came before it walking alone, before recognition also cultivates patience. In a world obsessed with quick results and instant gratification, true leaders understand that meaningful success takes time. Solitude teaches patience because the fruits of your labor don't show up immediately. You plant seeds, you water them, and you wait. You keep working even when it seems nothing is happening. That patience builds endurance, and endurance is what allows leaders to outlast everyone else. While others quit because results are slow, the one who has walked alone has already learned to be patient, to trust the process, to keep moving forward. Even when the timeline stretches longer than expected, the lonely path shapes character as well. When no one is watching, you are faced with choices that define who you are. Do you cut corners when no one will notice? Do you give up because no one will call you out? Or do you keep your integrity, your discipline, your standards even in solitude? Leaders who walk alone develop integrity that is not dependent on being seen. They do the right thing when no one is around, and that integrity becomes the bedrock of their leadership. People may not see it at first, but eventually it shows in the way they lead, in the way they inspire trust, in the way they stay consistent no matter the circumstances. And perhaps the most powerful aspect of walking alone before recognition is that it builds unshakable confidence. When you've carried yourself through doubt, through fear, through rejection, through loneliness, you emerge with the knowledge that you can handle anything. Recognition may come later. But even if it doesn't, you've proven to yourself that you can walk the path regardless. That kind of confidence cannot be faked, and it cannot be given. It must be earned through the lonely steps of perseverance. It is that confidence that makes leaders magnetic, because people are drawn to those who radiate certainty, those who embody strength, those who have already proven themselves in silence. Every great leader's story carries this pattern. The early chapters are always written in solitude, filled with doubt, filled with struggle, filled with lonely nights and uncelebrated efforts. But those very chapters are what prepare them for the spotlight, for the recognition, for the responsibility of leading others. Without the lonely path, there would be no depth, no resilience, no authenticity. That's why walking alone before recognition is not just part of the journey. It is the very thing that shapes a person into the kind of leader worth. Following independence creates resilience. No betrayal or loss can break you, because when you learn to stand on your own, you stop placing the foundation of your life in the hands of others. So many people live in a way that makes their happiness dependent on who stays with them, who supports them, who approves of them, and who believes in them. But the truth is, people can leave, circumstances can change, support can disappear, and the applause can fade overnight. If your sense of stability is tied to those external factors, you will collapse the moment they're gone. Independence breaks that cycle because it builds your life on something unshakable yourself. When you no longer need constant reassurance, when you no longer need someone to carry you, when you no longer build your worth on outside forces, you become untouchable. You know that betrayal cannot destroy you because you are not defined by someone else's loyalty. You know that loss cannot paralyze you because you are not limited by what you no longer have. You know that even when the world shifts, you can remain steady because your strength comes from within. Resilience is not something you are born with. It's something you cultivate. And the way you cultivate it is by facing hardship without running away from it. Independence forces you to do this because when you're independent, there's no fallback, no safety net, no one to soften the blows of life for you. You face failure directly. You face disappointment directly. You face rejection directly. And through those direct confrontations, you build a toughness that cannot be shaken. That toughness is resilience, and resilience is what allows you to endure what others cannot. The person who has always relied on others will crumble at the first betrayal, will collapse at the first loss, will be shattered at the first major challenge. But the independent one, the one who has carried themselves, the one who has built strength without leaning, will not just endure, they will grow stronger from every hit. Independence also teaches adaptability, and adaptability is a core part of resilience. Life is unpredictable. People you trust may betray you. Opportunities you work for may vanish. Plans you relied on may collapse. If you've tied your identity or your future to those things, the loss will feel unbearable. But independence teaches you to adjust. It teaches you to find another way when the obvious path is blocked. It teaches you to rely on your creativity, your problem solving, your persistence, instead of relying on others to fix it for you. That's why independent people can survive storms that drown everyone else. They don't panic when the plan fails. They don't quit when betrayal cuts them. They don't give up when loss comes. They adapt, they pivot, they create new opportunities out of setbacks. That adaptability makes them resilient, because resilience is not about avoiding pain. It's about continuing forward despite it. Another reason independence builds resilience is that it teaches you how to regulate your emotions. When you're dependent, your emotional state is tied to others. If they love you, you feel worthy. If they leave, you feel broken. If they approve, you feel confident. If they criticize, you feel small. That's not resilience, that's fragility. Independence breaks that chain because it teaches you to generate your own sense of worth, your own confidence, your own validation. You no longer collapse under criticism because you know who you are. You no longer fall apart when someone leaves because you were whole before they came. You no longer ride the roller coaster of other people's opinions because you've built stability within yourself. And when your emotions are stable, no external betrayal or loss can take away your strength. You feel the pain, but you are not destroyed by it. You are able to move forward, to rebuild, to rise again. Independence also strengthens resilience through self-reliance. When you've proven to yourself that you can survive without leaning on others, you stop fearing loss in the same way. If you've built your own income, you fear less the loss of a job. If you've learned how to comfort yourself, you fear less the loss of companionship. If you've discovered how to motivate yourself, you fear less the loss of external encouragement. Every skill of self-reliance you master becomes a shield against despair, because betrayal and loss only devastate you when they take away something you cannot replace. The independent person learns to replace, learns to rebuild, learns to create again. That capacity to rebuild is resilience in action. It's the reason some people recover from devastating setbacks while others remain stuck forever. Independence gives you the tools and the mindset to recover no matter what happens. There is also a deeper strength that comes from knowing you have faced the worst alone and survived. When you've experienced solitude after betrayal and you've still found a way to move forward, you carry a quiet confidence that no future betrayal can shake. When you've lost something valuable and still managed to rebuild, you carry the knowledge that no future loss can destroy you. That kind of resilience is not theoretical, it's lived. It's not the kind of confidence that needs to boast. It's the kind of confidence that simply knows. And people who carry that kind of inner strength walk through life differently. They don't cling to relationships out of fear. They don't grasp at opportunities out of desperation. They don't compromise their values to avoid rejection. They stand firm because they know that even if everything around them collapses, they will not collapse with it. Independence also prepares you for betrayal specifically. Betrayal hurts more than almost anything else because it comes from those you trust. But when you've built independence, betrayal doesn't end you. You may feel the sting, you may feel the pain, but you don't lose yourself in it. You don't lose your ability to function, to think clearly, to move forward. You've already learned how to depend on yourself, so betrayal is not the removal of your foundation. It's just a test of your resilience. Many people crumble because they had built their life around someone else's loyalty, but the independent one can grieve without being broken, can feel pain without being paralyzed, can let go without losing themselves. That's resilience, feeling deeply but still standing strong. Loss is another area where independence builds resilience. Loss is inevitable in life. You will lose relationships. You will lose opportunities. You will lose seasons of life that will never return. If you depend on those things to define you, loss will crush you. But independence shifts your perspective. It allows you to appreciate what you had without being destroyed. When it's gone, it allows you to carry memories without being trapped in them. It allows you to honor the past without surrendering the future. Loss hurts, but independence gives you the strength to transform loss into fuel, to use it as motivation, to grow from it rather than shrink because of it. That's why resilient people are not people who never lose. They are people who have learned to stand strong after loss, and that strength comes from independence. Independence builds resilience because it is a declaration that no matter what life takes away, it cannot take away you. It cannot take away your ability to think, to act, to create, to rebuild. It cannot take away your inner strength. It cannot take away the lessons you've learned or the skills you've developed. Once you've reached that level of independence, betrayal may hurt, but it won't destroy. Loss may wound, but it won't paralyze. Challenges may test, but they won't break you. You will continue to stand, continue to move, continue to rise, because your strength is not borrowed. It is yours. The strength built in solitude prepares you to lead and inspire others, because when you have walked alone, you have discovered the depths of your own resilience, and people are naturally drawn to someone who has proven themselves in silence before they step into the light. Most individuals wait for approval or company before they take action, but the ones who walk alone learn to depend on their own conviction. That conviction becomes magnetic, because others can sense when a person has been through struggle and come out stronger. You cannot truly lead others if you have never led yourself. And solitude, where self-leadership is forged, it is in the quiet hours, the difficult days, the uncelebrated victories that your character is tested and strengthened. And when you emerge from those seasons, you carry a power that inspires others without needing to speak a word. Walking alone gives you authenticity, and authenticity is the foundation of leadership. People follow those who are real, those who have faced themselves and chosen to live in alignment with their true values. Solitude strips away pretense, because there is no one to perform for, no one to impress, no one to manipulate. It is just you and your truth. In that raw space, you learn who you really are and what you really stand for. That self-knowledge gives you clarity, and clarity is contagious. When others are lost in confusion, they look for someone who radiates certainty. That certainty doesn't come from pretending to be strong in front of others. It comes from having been strong when no one else was around. Leaders who have walked through solitude can inspire, because they are not wearing masks. They are not chasing approval. They are grounded in something deeper. Another way solitude prepares you to lead is by teaching you responsibility. When you walk alone, there is no one to blame if things go wrong. You own your decisions. You own your actions. You own the results. That ownership builds accountability, and accountability is what makes leaders trustworthy. People are willing to follow someone who takes responsibility, not someone who hides behind excuses. Solitude forces you to build that muscle, because you cannot outsource blame when you're by yourself. Every step you take, every mistake you make, every success you create is yours alone. By the time others begin to notice your journey, you've already practiced ownership in solitude so many times that leadership becomes natural. You don't just demand responsibility from others, you embody it yourself. Solitude also strengthens vision, which is a critical trait of leadership. Leaders are expected to see further than others, to sense opportunities, to recognize dangers, to chart a path forward. Vision requires stillness, reflection, and focus, and those qualities are cultivated when you walk alone. Without the noise of constant opinions, you are able to sharpen your direction. You learn to trust your instincts. You learn to hear your inner voice, and you learn to stay aligned with it even when no one else agrees. When others finally begin to follow, they are not following someone who is guessing or wavering. They are following someone whose vision has been tested in solitude. That kind of clarity is not born in crowds. It is born in the silence of walking alone. Resilience gained in solitude also equips you to handle the weight of leadership. Leading others means you will face criticism, opposition, rejection, and pressure. If you have never endured those things alone, you will break when the crowd turns against you. But solitude trains you to keep moving despite resistance, to keep building despite lack of recognition, to keep believing despite doubt. Those qualities are exactly what people look for in a leader. They don't want someone who only shines when it's easy. They want someone who can stand strong in the storm. When you've learned to endure storms on your own, you naturally inspire confidence in others, because they see that your strength is real, not situational. Walking alone also cultivates empathy, which is essential for inspiring others. When you've experienced loneliness, rejection, and struggle, you understand the pain others go through on their own journeys. That understanding allows you to connect with people deeply. They don't just see you as someone above them. They see you as someone who has been where they are, someone who knows what it feels like to be unseen, someone who understands the fight it takes to rise. That empathy builds trust, and trust is the currency of leadership. Without trust, people won't follow wholeheartedly. With it, they will give their best. Leaders who have walked alone have a natural empathy that makes others feel seen. And that connection is what turns inspiration into action. Another element that solitude builds for leadership is discipline. When you are alone, no one is there to push you. No one is checking on your progress. No one is motivating you to keep going. You learn to show up for yourself consistently, to do the work even when no one notices, to stay committed even when results are delayed. That discipline becomes a cornerstone of leadership. Because leading others requires consistency. People lose faith quickly in someone who wavers, but they rally behind someone who shows up day after day with reliability. Solitude trains you in that consistency because you are not relying on applause or accountability from others. You learn to be driven by inner commitment, and that drive becomes a model for others to follow. Walking alone also builds creativity, which is vital for problem solving as a leader. Without distractions and constant noise, your mind has the freedom to explore new ideas, to imagine solutions, to innovate in ways that others don't see. Leadership is not just about repeating what has been done, it's about creating new paths where none existed. That kind of creativity is born in solitude, where your thoughts are uninterrupted, where your vision can expand beyond the limits of groupthink. When you step into leadership, that creativity sets you apart because people follow those who bring new solutions, not just recycled answers. Inspiration flows from someone who dares to think differently, and solitude is the training ground for that daring. The strength built in solitude also makes you resilient against power itself. Many people are corrupted when they gain leadership positions because they never had to stand alone before. Their identity was built on recognition, and when they finally receive it, they cling to it desperately, compromising their integrity to keep it. But those who have walked alone already know who they are without recognition. They don't need leadership to validate them, so they lead with integrity. They are not desperate to hold on to power because their strength is not dependent on it. That stability makes them inspiring because people sense when a leader is grounded, when they are serving from authenticity instead of insecurity. Solitude ensures that when recognition and influence come, they don't control you. You control them. Finally, solitude builds confidence that is unshakable. When you've walked alone through fear, through doubt, through rejection, and still managed to rise, you carry a certainty that others can feel. You don't need to shout it or prove it. It radiates naturally. People are drawn to confidence, but true confidence is not arrogance. It is the calm assurance of someone who has faced themselves in one. That kind of confidence makes others believe in themselves too. They see you and think, if this person could endure, so can I. That is the essence of inspiration. It's not about giving speeches or shouting slogans. It's about embodying strength so deeply that others feel their own strength awaken when they are around you. And the only way to embody that kind of strength is to build it in solitude, to earn it when no one is watching, to carry it long before recognition arrives,